Hey everybody, I'm Michael. It's good to see you again. We're going to be starting off at Judges 1 today. But first, I want to just go to those three baseline questions. You could maybe even say four. So, what is being said? How is it being said? And why is it being said that way? What is being said? How is it being said? And why is it being said that way? And then maybe a fourth one you could tag on is, how is this making me feel? What I'm hearing, what is being said, how is it being said, and why is it being said that way? It's good to lean into emotions as long as we keep them in their proper place. So we talked about circumcision in Joshua and how that makes us uncomfortable, or makes us a little squeamish, or it makes us curious or confused. And as long as we don't read too much outside the text, that can actually help us a lot. And the example we gave with circumcision is, we're confused about our sexuality as humans, right? Sexuality is paradoxical. So it's paradoxical in the sense that we feel like our sexuality is special, right? Of course, it's something that is special to many of us. It's enjoyable. It also has lots of long-term implications, right? It allows us to pass things down to generations. It allows us to have families, right? To some people, it represents commitment, right? But also sexuality, on the other side of things, that makes it paradoxical. We know that sexuality can be very painful. It can go back to trauma for many people. It can also go back to confusion or even shame, right? So it shows how confusing sexuality can sometimes be, how complex it is. And as we read that section about circumcision in Joshua, what I tried to pose to myself and of course to you guys is that perhaps God doesn't want to shy away from that area in our lives. As much as we might not want the Bible to talk about that, or as much as we might be confused as to why God is bringing up circumcision, maybe it's a sign that God even wants to designate that part. Maybe he even wants us to give that to him, and he can purify it and transform it. So that's kind of what I mean by asking those three questions. What is being said? How is it being said? And why is it being said that way? And maybe how does it make us feel, right? That's an example of using those tools in, I think, a pretty accurate way. I forgot if I already shared that I've studied the Bible a long time. Once again, I'm not trying to show off, but I'm just trying to let you know this is an area of passion for me, and I may not be like the world's foremost expert, but I do have a little bit of grounding with good teachers. So, with that, yeah, we're going to endeavor on to Judges now, which is going to be a crazy book. Maybe I'm a little bit nervous, but I think we're going to have fun. It is quite the work. So, anyway, Lord, thank you for Judges. Thank you for anybody listening to this. And we give this adventure to you in your name. Amen. All right, Judges chapter 1. Israel fights the remaining Canaanites. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go up. I have given the land into their hands." The men of Judah then said to Simeonites, their fellow Israelites, "Come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites. We, in turn, will go with you into yours." So the Simeonites went with them. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found Adoni-Bezek and fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. I guess that must have been like an ancient way to show dominion. I mean, very cruel, but here we are. Cut off their toes and picked up, Then Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes I cut off. Let me see. Then Adoni-Bezek, Adoni-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught up to him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Then Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. And they brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Oof. All right. Welcome to Judges, everybody. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem also and took it. And they put the city to the sword and set it on fire. That's so interesting to me, because I guess maybe I've had this idea in my head that Jerusalem was built by Israel. But it looks to me like Jerusalem was even more ancient than Israel itself. It's just interesting how you notice new things every time you read the Bible. So, after Judah went down to fight against, the men of Judah attacked Jerusalem and also took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. After that, Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev and the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites in Hebron, formerly called Kiriath-Arba, and defeated Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there, they advanced against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kireth and Sephar. And Caleb's still alive. That's amazing. I will give my daughter Aksha in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath-Sephar. And I think we may have actually heard of this, but maybe not. He probably has lots of daughters. Othniel, son of Kesna, and Caleb's younger brother, took it, and so Caleb gave his daughter Askah to him in marriage. One day, when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. And when she got off her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What can I do for you?" And she replied, "Do me a special favor. Since you have given me land in Negev, give me also springs of water." So Caleb gave her the upper lower springs. I think we have heard that story. I think that was in Joshua. Anyway, the descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up from the city of Palms with the people of Judah to live among the inhabitants of the desert of Judah and Negev and near Arad. Then the men of Judah went with the Simeonites, their fellow Israelites, and attacked the Canaanites living in Zephath, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore it was called Hormah. And Judah also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its territory. The Lord was with the men of Judah, and they took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains, because they had chariots fitted with iron. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb. As a land that was given to Caleb, who drove from it 3 sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, did not drive out Jebusites, or the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live there with the Benjamites. I'm pretty sure the Jebusites were the ones that tricked the Israelites. Now, the tribes of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. Now the tribes of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. And when they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city, and they said to him, "Show us how to get into the city, and we will see that you are treated well." So he showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family. That's kind of like Tamar, right? He then went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Beth Shan and Tanakh, or Dor, or Iblim, or Megiddo, and their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. When Israel became strong, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites, living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron or Naharal. So these Canaanites lived among them, but Zebulun did subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Achor, or Siddah, or Halab, or Askeb, or Helba, or Aphek, or Rohab. The Asherites lived among the Canaanites, inhabitants of the land, but because they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out those living in Mesher, Shemesh, or Beth Anath. But the Naphtalites too lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath, because became forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined the Danites to the hill country, not allowing them to come down into the plain, and the Amorites were determined also to hold out in Mount Heres and Ahalon and Shalbim. But when the power of the tribes of Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor, and the boundary of the Amorites was from Scorpion Pass to Selah and beyond. That's chapter 1. I think we have time for one more. Chapter 2, the angel of the Lord at Bochim. It's always interesting to know when the angel of the Lord, and kind of observe when he shows up. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, "I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land I swore to give to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you will not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars, yet you have disobeyed. Why have you done this?" So let's just read that one more time about the covenant. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. Yet you have disobeyed me. So maybe they didn't break their altars. Why have you done this? And I have also said, I will not drive them out before you. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called that place Bochim. There they offered sacrifices to the Lord. So I think that's interesting. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal and Bochum and said, yeah, that looks like the angel of the Lord talked to the whole people. There wasn't like, he didn't just talk to Moses or Joshua like in the past, but it sounds like he spoke to all of the people of Israel. You could read that yourself, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Next is, so there's, of course, displeasure that the angel of the Lord just communicated, and a lot of people wonder, like, if the angel of the Lord is Jesus himself, or, the Holy Spirit, maybe, or if he's just an angel speaking as a mouthpiece for the Lord. Not anybody knows absolutely, but those are sort of the possibilities. All right, so displeasure was communicated, and now there's going to be disobedience and defeat. Verse 6, after Joshua has dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to their own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him, and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath-Heres in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. And it's really not unusual for books to sort of rehash what a previous book has said, and that just happens everywhere in the Bible. After that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. And this is where it's going to get really hard for Israel for lots of the book of Judges. So this new generation has just come up that doesn't remember anything, right? After the whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals, and they forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped a variety of gods, and with different peoples all around them. And they aroused the anger of the Lord because they forsook him and served Baals and Ashtoreths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of the enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had done, just as he had sworn to them, and they were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of their raiders. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of oscillating in Judges, like high points and low points. Let's see. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them from the hands of these raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted themselves to other gods, and worshipped them. They quickly turned from the ways of their ancestors who had been obedient to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because of their groaning under those who oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to the ways even more corrupt than those of their ancestors, following their gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. Therefore the Lord was angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant I ordained for them, for their ancestors, I have not and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the ways of the Lord and walk in it as their ancestors did. The Lord had always allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua. All right, so that is Judges chapter 1 and 2. It's going to be a wild ride, everybody. And we even see at the end there that it looks like in verse 22 of chapter 2, it says, I will use them to test Israel. And that's just an interesting reality that is articulated in the scriptures repeatedly. You can even see that in the book of Job, right? Or if you go to Genesis, where God tests Abraham, right, with Isaac. There's all sorts of tests, and that's something that, we will wrestle with. We will always wrestle with, either in our practical lives, in the real pain that we're going through, or even just theoretically as we read the Bible for ourselves. What do we do with this God that is trying to test us? And is it good? Are we comfortable that he's testing us? It looks like that's what the scriptures say. So what do we want to do with that? Just a good question to lead out with Judges. Wish you guys well. Lord, thank you for chapter 1 and 2, and we look forward to 3 and 4. Catch you guys later.